Namaste. Amen and blessed be. The past couple of weeks, I've had some interesting conversations with our members who are excited with the prospect of Hillary Clinton becoming the first female president of the United States. Now, most of that excitement, I think, is based on Hillary's being a woman more than based on her policy stances, if we're honest. It would be very exciting to see a woman in the Oval Office. And while it hasn't signaled the end of racism in America, having an African American president nudged us all to reconsider notions of race and power in America. Can you imagine having a woman in that leadership role, having a woman being the most powerful person in the world, and the way that would invite everyone, everywhere, to reconsider the role of women? Now, the personal identity of our leaders has a deep impact on the way we understand ourselves and the way we see the world around us. And the same can be said for our understandings of God or the divine. The way we understand the divine impacts the way we see our world. And one of the aspects that we Unitarian Universalists often take for granted is the masculine and feminine aspects of the divine. We UUs tend to be pretty aware when it comes to feminist issues. From my very unscientific observations, it appears to me right now that we have about as many, maybe more, women serving congregations these days than men. And in this area of our tradition, all of the large Unitarian Universalist church are led by female ministers. That change happened just this year. So I was a little surprised this week, though, when I started looking through my resources for a children's story that could include feminine images of God or the divine feminine. I can usually pull something off the bookshelf that fits the sermon, but I had to go searching for this story about Sky Woman. As we have honed our beliefs over the years, as we've whittled away at the Christianity that we inherited, and as we've borrowed from other religious traditions, we could do a much better job at recognizing and responding to the female aspects of the universe, the goddess, if you will. Now, we UUs tend to be very abstract in our beliefs. We sometimes speak about a great power or a force in the universe, an unending creativity or the Big Bang, which we will talk about, I promise. It's nameless, it's faceless, it's abstract. But for the most part, we humans like to put names to things and put faces on things, especially things that are important to us. I mean, think of M&Ms or Mrs. Butterworth. It's an amazing marketing tool. A lot of my friends even name their cars. Faces and personalities help us connect, whether it's Mother Nature or Father Time, Green Man, the God of Abrahamic faiths, or an array of Eastern or indigenous traditions. People have, for millennia, seen the divine with human characteristics, including gender. So today I want to look at a few female descriptions of the divine, and then we'll talk about how more scientifically oriented Unitarian Universalists might reconsider the role gender plays in our own theology. So the most immediate idea of the feminine divine that comes to me is pagan ideas of the goddess. Now, there's a huge range of paganism, but Wicca is the most prominent one here in the United States. And for them, the goddess comes in three parts. She comes as the maiden, as the mother, and the crone. Now, the triple goddess embodies all these aspects, and I love the sort of diversity that it celebrates a full life of womanhood, not just one particular moment at one time. So the maiden represents enchantment, inception, expansion, the promise of new beginning, birth, youth, and enthusiasm. And the mother represents ripeness, fertility, sexuality, fulfillment, stability, power, and life. And the crone represents wisdom, relaxation, death, and good endings. So the goddess is valued for her full life, for an array of gifts and dispositions, not one single moment of what the perfect woman should be. The triple goddess would remind us today not just of mothers, but of all the accomplishments of amazing women in our lives. So let us celebrate the triple goddess, the young women, the mothers, the elders. Each of them, each of you, brings something special into our world every day. Now, Christianity hasn't been the kindest to women. Of all the traditions we're talking about today, this one took a little more digging to find the strain of the feminine divine. There is, of course, Mary, the mother of Jesus. Mary has a very special role, especially among Catholics. A lot of them pray to Mary. But even if you ask them, Catholics, she's certainly not part of the Trinity. Mary is not God. She's a big deal, but she is not God. So is there room for the feminine divine in Christianity? As it turns out, if you dig deep enough, there is, and her name is Sophia. Sophia, we know the name for girls, but in Greek it means wisdom. Sophia was the central concept in Greek and Roman philosophy, and she also influenced the early Christian movements that followed. I say it's Greek for wisdom, but Sophia wasn't just wisdom. Sophia is the wisdom of the universe, the order, the divine sense of purpose. And eventually that abstract philosophical idea of wisdom got personified into a woman. Now, have you guys heard of Hildegard of Bingen? You've probably, at least some of you, heard the name. I'm hearing about equal yeses and nos. She was one of the most widely recognized female figures in Catholic history. In the 12th century, imagine not a time of women really flourishing anywhere in the world. She was a leading nun. She was an author, a counselor, a linguist, a naturalist, a scientist, a philosopher, a physician, a poet, and a composer of music. She was a big deal in the Catholic Church. She also founded 2 monasteries. She was a force to be reckoned with, but it wasn't her intellect that earned her this respect. Hildegard of Bingen is most clearly known as a mystic. She had these personal experiences of the divine. And the divine that she experienced, that she wrote about, that she taught about, that she built these communities around, was her experience of Sophia. The feminine divine wisdom came to her in those mystical moments. I wish Wendy and Sophie were here to hear this. So the last goddess that I want to talk about today comes from the Hindu tradition. We had a lovely picture up there on the opening slide. Now, we often, from the West, try to paint Hinduism into a singular religion that looks somewhat like ours. But in reality, Hinduism is a tremendous, diverse patchwork of gods and goddesses, and they look and act different all across the country. Most of those gods and goddesses take on very human characteristics. So I want to share with you about the goddess Saranvali. She's the lion rider. Actually, I think she was on a tiger in that picture. But she comes from northwest India. She's also known as Mata, or Mother. She is the object of veneration. She is the focus of religious life there. She's on the sides of buses. She's on billboards, and you can hear shouted in the street, "Jai Mata Di," or "Victory to the Mother." Now, I like this goddess in particular for today's celebration. First of all, because she's not a consort deity. She's not paired with a male the way most Hindu goddesses are. She stands on her own. She has her own power, and what a power it is. She has all the basic functions of a goddess might have, of creation, preservation, destruction of the universe, the basic stuff. She also cures diseases and helps people in distress. Now, another reason that she deserves special attention is because of the diversity of her personality. She's complete and she is complex. She's both creation and destruction, both nurturing and ferocious. And those come up in two different images of the same goddess, Vaishno Devi and Kali, two very different images. One is the lovely picture that we saw. The other one is a fierce picture of really looks like a demon with this giant lolling tongue that laps up the blood of demons that she kills, and she wears this necklace of skulls. She is hardcore. But devotees can worship the goddess in either form. But always the wholeness, the complexity of Saranvali is maintained. Victory to the mother depends on her integrity as a full package. Now, in the West, and especially in the United States, we've seen a recent uplift of the feminine divine. The two earlier examples I talked about have seen that resurgence, both in paganism and in some Christian feminist circles are sort of trying to uplift and rediscover Sophia. But what I love about the goddess in Hinduism is that it's always been there. There's never been this need to recover it and find it again. The goddess doesn't come out of a revaloration of a forgotten symbol of the ancient past. The goddess is always and has always been there, and she is there forever. She's not going anywhere. Now, so far, this sermon has been very God-heavy, or goddess-heavy, to be more precise. And that concerned me. I wasn't really sure how I was going to translate this for our Unitarian Universalist faith. And then I realized that the same principles can be applied to what most of us hold as our creation myth. Our story of the beginnings of from a scientific perspective. There is an undervalued feminine aspect at work there as well. Now, the Big Bang has never really settled very well with my consciousness. Don't freak out. I don't think it's scientific propaganda. It's just never been something that I could sink my teeth into as a significant story. It's not a point of meaning or significance for me. And I realized this week that maybe because the metaphors so often used to describe the beginning depend on a really violent sense of power. violent explosions of chaos and noise. They're a particular sort of image. They're a stereotypically male image. Now today I want to challenge some of our assumptions about the Big Bang. The greatest minds in our society tell us that once upon a time, all of the universe, all of what we know and what we haven't even seen yet, existed in one singular unit. That mysterious unit was infinitely dense and infinitely hot. And then 13.8 billion years ago, that unit began to rapidly expand and cool and come together. Now, only through some really complex equations can physicists begin to speculate about how that expansion might have happened. That's pretty far out there. It's about as far out as Sky Woman, to be honest. It's far beyond our everyday comprehension. Heck, the scientific definition uses the word infinite in it. Our attempt to apply basic human concepts to this moment are pretty futile. But we have, because we seek to understand it, and because we want to get it on our terms. We came up with a way to relate to it, calling it the Big Bang. Now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word bang? Gunshot, dynamite, maybe a car wreck. Sometimes when I think of that theory, I think of a fireworks display. But the events that occurred 13.8 billion years ago are truly inconceivable for our lived human experience. What occurred in the beginning was more complicated and more powerful than innumerable nuclear explosions. Mathematical equations can begin to suggest what might have happened, but we need more than the word bang as a metaphor to work with. What if instead of the Big Bang, that we can't really understand anyway, what if we had the Big Birth? It's really not that big of a leap. In a short but powerful time frame, something deeply complex and beautiful was created. From an unimaginably small beginning, with the right circumstances, growth began to occur and the universe began to organize itself into being. The Big Birth was a frightfully powerful time. There was darkness and there was intense light. It's a wonder that things turned out the way that they did. What a baffling combination of danger and creation, beauty and pain to bring order into being. It's the Big Birth. All this drama to create a beautiful, complex, growing existence with an uncertain but hopeful future. I believe that what occurred 13.8 billion years ago was more similar to a birth than a bang. And I believe that we have a great deal to be grateful for this Mother's Day. I want to close this sermon with revisiting the prayer that we heard earlier from Starhawk. And I wonder if you feel any differently about this prayer than you did when you first heard it. Earth Mother, Star Mother, you who are called by 1,000 names, may all remember we are cells in your body and dance together. We are radiant light and sacred dark, the balance. You are the embrace that heartens and the freedom beyond fear. Within you we are born, we grow, live, and die. You bring us around the circle to rebirth. Within us you dance forever. Amen.